2 meters per minute. That's how slowly Australian SAS soldiers moved through enemy territory in Vietnam, carrying 40 kilograms, 7 days without radio contact, invisible to hundreds of Viet Cong fighters around them. Phuoc Tuy Province, 1966. What they accomplished changed reconnaissance warfare forever. When Australian forces deployed to Vietnam in 1966, they brought with them the Special Air Service Regiment, an elite unit trained at Swanbourne Base in Western Australia. Their mission in Phuoc Tuy Province was unlike conventional warfare. Conduct long-range reconnaissance patrols deep into enemy territory to locate Viet Cong supply routes and base camps. These weren't quick raids. Documentation shows SASR patrols operated for 7 to 14 days continuously in hostile jungle, often within meters of enemy positions. Each soldier carried 35 to 40 kilograms of equipment, weapons, ammunition, rations, water, communication gear. Radio silence was standard protocol for extended periods. The Viet Cong controlled the terrain, knew every trail, every village. But nobody expected what would come next. Military records indicate the challenge was extraordinary. Move undetected through triple canopy jungle, where visibility was measured in meters, not kilometers. The Viet Cong had informants in every village, booby traps on major trails, and numerical superiority of 10 to 1 or greater in their operating areas. One sound, a cough, a weapon clicking, equipment rattling could compromise an entire patrol. How do you stay invisible for 2 weeks straight while enemy forces walk past your position? According to SASR historical documentation, the preparation began months before deployment at Swanbourne. Training emphasized what military reports called tactical patience, the ability to remain motionless for hours while maintaining alertness. Soldiers learned to move at speeds that seemed impossible, 1 to 2 meters per minute during critical infiltration phases. The selection process itself filtered for men capable of this work. Records show candidates underwent psychological evaluations, specifically testing tolerance for isolation and ability to maintain discipline under stress. Physical endurance was assumed. Mental endurance was tested. Training exercises included 48-hour insertions where instructors penalized any detectable noise or movement. Failure meant removal from the program. The pre-patrol ritual was meticulous. Records show every piece of equipment was modified to eliminate noise. Metal components were taped, canteens were only filled 3/4 to prevent sloshing, dog tags were wrapped in rubber. Soldiers removed anything reflective, watches, rings, anything that could catch light. Even bootlaces were checked for fraying that might catch on vegetation. Weapons were test-fired, then cleaned and rechecked. The L1A1 SLR rifle, standard issue, had its safety mechanism tested repeatedly to ensure silent operation. Communication protocols were strict. Once inserted by helicopter into patrol areas, teams operated under radio silence unless contact was made or critical intelligence required immediate reporting. Documentation indicates some patrols went 5 to 7 days without radio transmission. Hand signals replaced verbal commands. The standard 4-man patrol configuration, patrol commander, medic, signaler, and scout, each had specific responsibilities for silent movement. The scout led, testing each step. The commander navigated. The signaler monitored for emergency communications. The medic tracked the physical condition of team members through observation alone. Navigation was calculated down to compass degrees. According to operational reports, SASR teams planned routes that avoided known trails entirely, moving through the thickest jungle where Viet Cong presence was minimal. Water sources were mapped, but approached with extreme caution. Rest periods were staggered, never the entire team simultaneously. Weapons were kept on safe, but accessible. The preparation wasn't just physical. Military psychologists noted the mental conditioning required to maintain absolute silence while knowing enemy forces operated meters away. Operational reports from Phuoc Tuy Province document what happened when these techniques met reality. During infiltration phases, SASR patrols moved so slowly that individual steps took multiple minutes to complete. The process was documented. Test the ground with boot toe, Gradually transfer weight. Freeze if any sound occurred. Wait. Continue. 1 kilometer could take 6 to 8 hours to cover. According to veteran accounts verified in historical records, the closest encounters happened during these movements. Viet Cong patrols would pass within 3 to 5 meters of Australian positions. The protocol was absolute stillness. No breathing adjustments, no eye movement that could catch peripheral vision. Weapons aimed but safeties on to prevent accidental discharge. Military reports confirm instances where SAS soldiers remained motionless for 2 to 3 hours while enemy forces moved through their immediate area. One documented incident involved a 4-man patrol that detected enemy movement while crossing a stream. The team froze mid-crossing, water flowing around them. For over an hour, as Viet Cong soldiers used the same stream 50 meters downstream. According to the patrol report, they maintained position despite muscle fatigue and the risk of hypothermia from prolonged water immersion. When enemy forces departed, the patrol continued their crossing using the same meter-by-meter approach. The psychological pressure was documented by unit medical officers. Soldiers reported hearing every sound amplified, their own heartbeat, the rustle of uniform fabric with each breath, insects on equipment. One recorded patrol spent 14 hours in a single position after detecting enemy movement nearby. They couldn't retreat, couldn't advance, could only wait in complete silence. Medical debriefs noted that some soldiers reported losing sense of time during these periods, where minutes felt like hours. Weather added complexity. Monsoon rains could provide acoustic cover for faster movement, but also increased the risk of leaving tracks in mud. Documentation shows patrols adapted their movement speed to conditions. Faster during heavy rain, slower during clear weather when sound carried further. Heat exhaustion was constant. Jungle temperatures exceeded 35 degrees Celsius regularly, yet soldiers couldn't remove equipment or adjust uniforms in ways that created noise. Water discipline became critical. Documentation shows patrols carried enough for 7 days minimum, but jungle heat and load weight meant consumption was carefully rationed. Dehydration was preferable to the noise of refilling canteens from streams where ambush risk was highest. Food was consumed cold. No fires, no heated rations. Meals were taken in shifts, one man eating while others maintained security. The intelligence gathered was extraordinary. Military records indicate SASR patrols identified supply routes the Viet Cong considered completely secure. They documented enemy movements, base camp locations, weapons caches. According to operational summaries, information from these patrols directed multiple successful Australian and Allied operations. The Viet Cong intelligence network, normally effective at tracking foreign forces, struggled to detect these teams. Captured enemy documents later revealed confusion about Australian patrol methods. How were they moving undetected through areas under constant surveillance? Between 1966 and 1971, documentation from the Australian SAS Historical Foundation shows the regiment conducted thousands of patrol days in Phuoc Tuy province. The casualty ratio was remarkable. Official records indicate SASR suffered significantly lower losses compared to other units conducting similar reconnaissance missions. The silent tactics worked. The impact on enemy operations was measurable. Military intelligence reports noted increased Viet Cong caution in areas where SASR operated. Supply routes were relocated, sometimes multiple times, after being compromised by patrol intelligence. According to verified accounts, enemy forces began avoiding certain jungle areas entirely, considering them haunted by invisible Australian forces. Some Viet Cong units reportedly refused to patrol specific sectors, believing supernatural forces protected Australian soldiers. Extraction procedures maintained the same discipline as insertion. When patrols reached pickup zones, they established security perimeters using the same silent movement techniques. Helicopter extractions were timed for minimal ground exposure, usually under 2 minutes from landing to departure. Even during extraction under potential enemy observation, records show teams maintained noise discipline until airborne. The helicopter pilots developed specific techniques to minimize hover time, reducing the window for enemy response. The physical toll was significant. Medical reports document that soldiers returning from 2-week patrols had lost considerable body weight despite high-calorie rations. Weight losses of 5 to 7 kilograms were common. Dehydration was endemic despite water discipline protocols. Foot conditions from constant moisture required immediate treatment. Psychological debriefings noted the mental fatigue of sustained hypervigilance. Some soldiers reported difficulty sleeping for days after return, their bodies still conditioned for constant alertness. Yet according to unit records, soldiers volunteered repeatedly for these patrols. The success rate and survival rate made the hardship acceptable. Australian military leadership recognized the effectiveness. Official commendations cited specific patrols for intelligence value that prevented Australian casualties elsewhere. The techniques developed in Vietnam became standard SASR doctrine, taught at Swanbourne to subsequent generations. The long-range patrol techniques developed by Australian SAS in Vietnam influenced reconnaissance doctrine globally. According to military historians, other special forces units studied SASR methods, particularly the tactical patience approach to movement. The Australian Army's infantry schools incorporated modified versions into general training. American Special Forces units operating in the same region noted the Australian techniques and adapted elements for their own operations. Official recognition came through unit citations and individual awards, though many operational details remained classified for decades. The SASR received the Meritorious Unit Citation for Vietnam service, with patrol operations specifically mentioned in the citation language. Individual soldiers received decorations including the Military Cross and Distinguished Conduct Medal for actions during these patrols. Several members received mentions in dispatches for intelligence gathering that directly prevented friendly casualties. The legacy extends beyond tactics. Swanbourne training programs still emphasize the principles proven in Phuoc Tuy. Patience over speed, stealth over firepower, intelligence over direct action. Veterans of Vietnam patrols became instructors, passing knowledge directly to new generations. Modern SASR selection courses test candidates' ability to maintain discipline under psychological pressure. Lessons learned when silence meant survival. The operational philosophy influenced Australian military culture broadly. The concept that small, highly trained teams could achieve strategic effects through patience and precision, rather than overwhelming force, became doctrine. This approach proved valuable in subsequent conflicts, where Australian forces operated in complex environments with limited resources. International military academies studied the SASR Vietnam experience. British SAS, New Zealand SAS, and special forces from allied nations incorporated elements of the Australian approach into their training. The Ghost Soldiers of Vietnam established standards that define not just Australian special operations, but influenced special reconnaissance methodology across multiple nations 50 years later. But Vietnam wasn't the only place Australian SAS proved their methods worked in impossible conditions. Decades later, in mountains where temperatures dropped below freezing and Taliban fighters controlled every valley, SASR patrols would again demonstrate that patience and silence could defeat numerical superiority. Afghanistan's Uruzgan province would see these Vietnam-era techniques adapted for modern warfare, with results that surprised even Allied Special Forces commanders. If you want to discover more real special operations history from Australia and New Zealand forces, subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment. Which historical SASR or NZSAS operation should we detail next? Until then.